you're doing it again. You're adding get rich and get fit to a life that's already drowning in TikTok and 12 a.m. scrolling. You're trying to expand your plate instead of cleaning it. The truth? You aren't failing because you're not doing enough, you're failing because you're too weak to say no to the things that don't matter. If you're too comfortable to even hit a subscribe button to fix your mindset, how are you ever going to have the discipline to fix your life? You are currently standing in front of the most dangerous buffet in the world, but you can't see the steam rising from the trays. This isn't a restaurant, it's your life in 2026, and your plate is already heavy enough to break your wrists. Look at it. Really look at it. You've piled on the hustle, the side quest, the new version of you, and the desperate need to be liked by people you don't even respect. But here is the question that should keep you awake tonight. Why, with a plate so full, do you still feel so incredibly empty? The answer is a brutal biological reality that no manifestation coach will ever admit to you. We have been sold the lie of and. You're told you can have the career and the six-pack and the perfect social life and the peaceful mind. But have you noticed that the more you add, the more your results seem to vanish into thin air? It's because your capacity isn't a rubber band, it's a glass jar. And you've been stuffing it with stones until it's microfracturing under the pressure. Every time you say yes to a new distraction, you are silently screaming no to your actual destiny. Think about the last 3 goals you set. Where are they? They didn't die because you lacked talent, they died because you tried to feed them with leftover energy. You are treating your focus like an infinite resource, but in reality, you are leaking power through 1,000 tiny holes you're too scared to plug. You've been told that more is the path to greatness, but what if I told you that more is actually the very trap designed to keep you average? The universe loves a crowded mind because a crowded mind is easy to control. It's easy to distract. It's easy to keep typical. If you feel like you're running a race in waist-deep water, it's not the water's fault, it's the weights you refuse to drop. We are addicted to the possibility of having it all because it saves us from the pain of choosing one thing. Choice requires sacrifice. And sacrifice is the one thing your ego cannot handle. You've spent years wondering when the real version of your life is going to start. You're waiting for a moment where the stars align and the burden lightens. But here is the brutal truth, the burden only lightens when you stop picking up things that don't belong to you. So, before we move to the next chapter, ask yourself, what are you holding on to purely because you're afraid of the silence that would follow if you let it go? Because in that silence, the silence you've been avoiding by staying busy, lies the only metric of success that actually matters. And most of you will never see it, because you're too busy asking for a bigger plate. You finally got what you wanted, didn't you? Or at least, you're closer than you were. The title on the door is changing, the digits in the bank account are creeping upward, and for the first time, people are actually looking at you with a flicker of envy. You've mastered the observable metrics. You've checked the boxes that society told you would make you a somebody. But as you lie in bed at 2 a.m., staring at the ceiling with a heart that won't stop racing, there is a cold, hollow realization settling in your gut: you are losing a game you didn't even know you were playing. Welcome to the world of hidden metrics. This is the ledger where your soul keeps score, and right now, you are deep in the red. We have been conditioned to trade things we cannot see for things that everyone else can. You traded a 30-minute commute for a 90-minute one because the salary was higher, but did you factor in the corrosive texture of your mind during those extra 2 hours of traffic? You traded a 9 to a 5 that left you room to breathe for a 24/7 opportunity that demands your presence even in your dreams. You think you're buying a better life, but you're actually just renting a more expensive cage. Ask yourself this: what is the price of your presence? Because while you were busy chasing a metric that people can see from the street, you lost the metric that can only be felt in the home. You're at the dinner table, but your mind is in a boardroom. You're holding your child's hand, but your spirit is checking an email. You are physically there, but existentially absent. This is the provisional life, the belief that once you hit a certain number, you'll finally start living. But numbers are infinite, and time is the only thing with a hard ceiling. Why are you so afraid to look at the hidden costs? Is it because you suspect the math doesn't add up? Every time you choose a more stressful industry for a more impressive lifestyle, you are taking out a high-interest loan against your future health. You are trading the quality of your sleep, the depth of your friendships, and the very structure of your nervous system for a car that will be outdated in 3 years. The most successful people in 2026 aren't the ones with the biggest houses, they are the ones with the most unallocated time. They are the ones who can turn their phones off on a Friday and not feel a single pang of productivity debt. But you? You've tied your self-worth to a treadmill that only goes faster. You're terrified that if you stop, you'll realize that the success you've been building is actually just a very well-decorated prison. The payoff for this climb was supposed to be freedom. So why do you feel more enslaved than ever? In the next chapter, we're going to look into the mirror and face the drill sergeant who's been lying to you about your progress. But first, you need to decide, are you willing to keep winning the wrong game just because the crowd is cheering? Or are you brave enough to care about the things no one else can see? Have you ever noticed that no matter how much you finish, the weight on your chest never actually gets lighter? You could check off 20 tasks, work a 14-hour day, and collapse into bed, yet there's still that nagging, venomous voice whispering that you've somehow fallen behind. This is the productivity debt, the psychological parasite that makes you wake up every morning already in the red. You are living in a state of productivity dysmorphia, a condition where you are literally incapable of seeing the volume of your own success. But why is your brain so determined to make you feel like a failure even when you're winning? Imagine you are an athlete on a field, but your coach only ever speaks when you drop the ball. He is silent when you score, he is mute when you win, but the moment you trip, he screams until your ears bleed. That coach is the drill sergeant in the back of your mind. You've let him take the wheel because you think his cruelty is discipline. You've convinced yourself that if you stop whipping yourself into submission, you'll revert to being typical. But here is the brutal truth, you aren't running toward a goal, you are running away from a ghost. This dysmorphia sits at the toxic intersection of burnout, imposter syndrome, and chronic anxiety. It robs you of the ability to savor any victory because the moment a goal is reached, your brain immediately moves the goalposts another 10 miles down the road. You aren't allowed to celebrate the new you because you're too busy mourning the time you wasted getting here. This is why you feel like a fraud. This is why you can't sit still on a Sunday without feeling a wave of guilt wash over you. You've turned your life into a rocky cutscene that never ends, and you're wondering why the music hasn't started playing yet. Close-up of a ticking clock with the words, productivity debt, written across the face. The tragedy of 2026 is that we have become better at measuring our lives than living them. You track your steps, your sleep, your calories, and your deep work hours, but you've forgotten how to track your joy. You are hoarding output like it's a currency that can buy you a soul, but the exchange rate is zero. If your set point is always loss, then the best you can ever achieve is a draw. You never actually win. You just survive another day of your own judgment. But what if the minimum level of acceptable output you've set for yourself is actually a suicide mission for your creativity? What if the very pressure you're applying is the reason you feel so stuck? The answers you seek are hiding in the silence you are so desperately trying to avoid with your busyness. You're terrified of that silence because in it, you might realize that the drill sergeant has no power over you unless you give him the whip. In the next chapter, we are going to perform a radical surgery on your schedule. We are going to kill the illusion of choice and find the only two things that actually deserve your energy. But before we go there, you have to answer, who are you trying to prove wrong? And is that person even watching? You are currently suffering from a sickness called the illusion of choice. You believe that by keeping 5 different doors open, you are increasing your chances of success, but in reality, you are just making sure you never leave the hallway. This is the moment where the buffet trap meets its final judgment. If you want to reach escape velocity in 2026, you have to become an assassin of your own good ideas so that your great ones actually have room to breathe. Welcome to the rule of 2. It is the most offensive piece of advice you will ever hear because it demands that you kill your darlings. We live in a culture that worships the polymath and the multi-hyphenate, but have you noticed that the people who are everything usually feel like nothing when the lights go out? You want to be the elite entrepreneur and the master musician and the world traveler and the perfect partner. It sounds noble, but it is actually a form of cowardice. You are spreading yourself thin so that if you fail, you have a built-in excuse, I just had too much on my plate. You are hiding from the pain of true commitment behind the mask of ambition. But what happens to a laser when you diffuse the light? It becomes a flashlight. It might illuminate the room, but it will never cut through steel. The rule of 2 is simple and devastating. You are allowed 2 big things. That's it. You can lose 20 pounds and build a 6-figure business. You can master a new craft and find the love of your life. But you cannot do those things and move cities and learn a language and maintain a perfect social circle all in the same 12 months. If you try to rank order your life and you find 10 items on the list, items 3 through 10 are not tasks, they are the enemies of your future. They are the anchors keeping your ship in the harbor while you're busy polishing the deck. Cinematic shot of a hand crossing out a long list of goals until only 2 remain, circled in gold. Why is this so terrifying? Because once you only have 2 goals, you no longer have anywhere to hide. If you only have 2 things to do and you still don't do them, you have to face the fact that the problem isn't time management, the problem is you. This is why most people will watch this chapter and immediately try to find a loophole. They'll say, but my situation is different. No, it's not. Your biology is the same, your 24 hours are the same, and your eventual end is the same. The payoff of the rule of 2 isn't just productivity, it's the death of anxiety. When you stop trying to be 5 different people, the productivity debt starts to dissolve. You finally give yourself permission to be bad at the things that don't matter so you can be legendary at the things that do. But are you ready for the lonely chapter that comes when you stop speaking the language of the distracted crowd? In our final chapter, we are going to talk about the escape velocity, the moment where you finally break free from the pull of the typical. But first, look at your list. Which 8 good things are you willing to let die today so that 2 great things can finally live? You've cut the baggage. You've identified the hidden costs. You've even faced the drill sergeant in your head. But as you stand on the edge of this new life in 2026, a cold wind is starting to blow, and it carries a question you weren't prepared for. Why does winning feel so much like being alone? This is the lonely chapter, the final gatekeeper of your transformation. It's the moment the rocket ship leaves the launch pad and realizes that while the fire is beautiful from a distance, it's deafening when you're the one sitting on the engine. The universe has a natural state, and that state is typical. There is a gravitational pull toward the mean, a silent pressure from your environment, your friends, and even your family to stay exactly where they can see you. When you start reaching escape velocity, you are essentially declaring war on the status quo. You'll notice the invitations start to dry up. You'll realize that when you speak about your rule of 2, your old circle looks at you like you're speaking a foreign dialect. They don't see your growth as inspiration, they see it as a mirror reflecting their own stagnation. And that is a friction that most people cannot survive. Will you have the stomach to be the villain in someone else's story just to be the hero in your own? Close-up of a person walking away from a blurred crowd into a bright, sharp horizon. Most people quit here, not because the work is too hard, but because the silence is too loud. They miss the validation of the buffet trap. They miss the productivity debt, because at least it gave them something to complain about with everyone else. But you have to understand, the loneliness isn't a sign that you're lost, it's the proof that you've finally left the crowd. You are shedding your old self like a booster rocket that has run out of fuel. It served you once, but if you keep holding onto it now, it will only pull you back down to earth. But here is the payoff that no one tells you about. On the other side of this lonely mile is a different kind of connection. It's a connection based on who you are becoming, not who you used to be. You are currently in the zone of proximal development, pushing into the edges of your potential where the air is thin but the view is infinite. This is where the hidden metrics finally flip in your favor. This is where the peace of mind you've been chasing finally settles in, not because your problems disappeared, but because you became the kind of person who handles them without breaking. Cinematic shot of a person standing in a quiet, sun-drenched room, looking at a simple list of 2 goals, both checked off. Life is inherently ridiculous and guaranteed to end. In 3 generations, no one will remember the car you drove or the title you fought for. They won't remember the observable metrics you sacrificed your soul to maintain. But you will know. In the quiet moments before you close your eyes, you will know if you had the courage to resist the equilibrium. You will know if you reached escape velocity or if you just spent your life polishing a ladder leaning against the wrong wall. The countdown has already started. 2026 is happening right now, whether you're ready or not. You can do it tired, you can do it sad, and you can do it lonely, but you cannot do it later. The only question left is, are you going to stay on the launch pad, or are you ready to see what's on the other side of the clouds?